Hello and welcome to Edinburgh Business Stories. EBS is hosted by myself, Alex Richards of Umore, a video production studio based in Edinburgh and Bristol, and Alan Smith of Action Coach, providing business coaching throughout Edinburgh and the Lothians. If you aren't already, remember to subscribe, and I hope you enjoy this upcoming episode of Edinburgh Business Stories. Michael, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me.
Give us a snapshot of who you are and what your business does.
Okay, so my name is Michael Apter. I'm the managing director of Paper Tiger. Paper Tiger is a long-established Edinburgh retailer, and we have 4 shops across the city, and we trade online.
Amazing. So it has quite a legacy to the business. So take us back. You can go back as far as you like. Where would you like to start?
So Paper Tiger came from a family of businesses that were started by a gentleman called John Johnson. John is in his 80s now. He's still active and interested in what I do with the business. But he started back in 1966 with the Studio One shop on Stafford Street, in the basement of Stafford Street at number 10. He expanded that business through the 60s through other basements. He opened cook shops and furniture shops. He had a record shop in St. Stephen's Street. He had soft furnishing shops in the West End and on Lothian Road, and sometime in the late 80s, I think, he's not too sure either, but sometime in the late 80s, John opened Paper Tiger on Stafford Street. And Studio One had sold cards and stationery for a while, and he took the opportunity to spin it out as a separate brand, as a separate business. And opened a second shop on Lothian Road, again, late 80s, early 90s. And I joined the business in 1997, originally as a franchisee, at a point where John was looking for sort of interesting ways to run the business and bring different people in. And that worked out really well for where I was at that point in my life and career. And I then took on the second shop, which was in Stafford Street, and then got involved in the Studio One business as well, which by then was trading as a gallery and as a sort of shop in the basements. Separate to that, there was, and still is, a furniture shop in Morningside, and there was a cook shop in Morningside at the time. So it was a fairly significant business, turning over several £1 million a year, with franchisees in the furniture shop and the cook shop, me doing Paper Tiger, franchisee running the main Studio One shop as well for a while. The business then went back into the family briefly, and I was involved in that effectively as operations director for a while. And then coming up, I think about 9 years ago now, we made the decision that we would close the Studio One shop as it turned 50, so that we could concentrate on Paper Tiger. And at that point, I took over the Paper Tiger business for myself. At that point, we had the 2 shops, and I got the business online. A couple of years after that, we were trading online as well. And then post-pandemic, we have added a shop in Morningside in May 2023. And in the summer of 2024, we opened our 4th branch in Edinburgh on Rayburn Place in Stockbridge.
Amazing. So take us back to the beginning of then your career. You know, where did your love for retail start?
My love for retail began through sheer hatred. I got a Saturday job at Tesco's when I was 16 on £1 and 2 pence an hour. And I think some of that was deducted for my union membership to Usdaw. So I was earning less than £1 an hour. And that was in what was then the biggest Tesco's in the UK in Rochdale, where I had the misfortune to do some of my growing up. And I learned a great deal about retail between sort of June of 1984 and December 1984. And by December 1984, I knew I was never going to work in retail at Christmas ever again. And this one will be my 40th or 41st Christmas in retail going into Christmas 2025. It was just overwhelming, but I did that for a couple of years while I was in sixth form and allegedly revising for my A-levels, and just got into it, just got into the process. And Tesco's were and remain a phenomenal business. I think they are like the sort of apex predator on the high street. They're phenomenal at what they do, and they were phenomenal then. I learned from some incredible people, not always positive lessons, but I learned a lot about standards of presentation, of how shops should look, of customer service, and of the importance of the curb appeal, effectively, of a shop. So, being able to walking away after, I used to work on a Monday night as well. I used to do a 5-hour shift on a Monday night after school, and sort of getting away after 10 o'clock on a Monday evening, and being able to look down the aisle of whether it be boxes of cereals or confectionery or fizzy pop or whatever, and just see everything lined up, faced up, all the bottles facing the right way, all the labels facing the right way, all the shelf edges all organised, is a really powerful memory of that time about standards, about how you need to maintain rigour for the customer, and that the visual impact that makes is really critical to the experience that they then have in your shop.
So if it's kind of funny, and all you're talking, I can see it when I think about Paper Tiger, but I would never think about that at Tesco. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, I know what you mean, but I would never, and you can clearly see it through what you've created, but it's just funny that you're thinking about like, whoa, Tesco, when all the cereal was faced. Do you know what I mean? It's just funny to.
But I personally, I work very visually. So, I how colours work together and shapes and patterns is basic way in which I visualize the shops. And I think it definitely came from those early experiences at Tesco's. So it was just a couple of years with them, and I spent a lot of time afterwards really not liking them, and would shop with other supermarkets rather than give them any cash. But I actually look back at it now, not necessarily fondly. I had some very unpleasant experiences there as well, but I learned a great deal about that kind of attention to detail. That it is the oldest cliche in the book that retail is detail, but they are still the absolute masters of it on the high street, I think. After I went to university, and every vacation, my parents moved to Preston the summer that I did my A-levels, and the premier retailer in Preston at that time, and still is, E.H. Booth and Company. And I worked in their warehouse, which was in central Preston at the time, every summer, Easter and Christmas holidays for the entire 3 years. And they basically meant that I came out with a very small overdraft when I graduated from Sheffield University back in 1989. And again, that was an introduction to it was a different way of working. It was a warehouse setup, but it was, the kind of logistical side of it was interesting. Again, worked with some interesting people, some very diligent people, some challenging people, all of whom were much older than me at that point. And there were other students that worked there at the time. And I think one of the early lessons for me there was how to work with lots of different kinds of people and make sure they got the best of me, but also that I was getting the best of them. I was not managing them remotely. I was like the summer temp, but I learned how to work in a team and work with other people effectively. And so I love booths. I was home visiting my parents last week, and my mum had their Christmas book, which they've done for about 10 or 15 years now. And she'd picked up a Christmas book for me. So when I got to the house, she went, "I've got your booths books on, and I will go through it diligently and fold down pages prepare what we will be, well, hopefully what they will bring up in December for our Christmas week, basically. I think they're amazing at what they do as well for a different reason. Their shops are beautiful and they're really well presented, and they tick a lot of those kind of Tesco's boxes, but the way in which they present, the caliber of the buying that they do, the consideration that goes into their ranges, the way in which they work with their suppliers is very reminiscent of what we try to do at Paper Tiger.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of time for them, and I have a club card in my pocket, even though I very rarely get to use. Sorry, not a Tesco's one. Sorry, a Booth's card.
Yeah.
I've never even heard of it.
You've not had that?
They're posh Waitrose.
The Waitrose
Okay,
of
that's
the
the
North.
vibe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have met Edwin Booth.
Okay.
Yeah, in a previous life. Yes. Anyway.
Okay. Well, of course. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
So I think it's taken them a long time to catch up with what they had such clout, and I think they got utterly wiped out by the kind of supermarket wars in the 90s, and then they got completely blindsided by the internet, and I think it just feels like they're just beginning to find their own feet in the 21st century, to be honest. But I admire them from afar. Although they're definitely doing more things like we do. They're definitely moving into kind of contemporary gifting and design-led gifting, and they've got a much bigger stationery offer than they've ever had before. So kind of watch them with a bit of intrigue these days. After I graduated, I ended up graduated into a recession and ended up with a temp job at HMV. And that was Christmas 1989.
So, quick one. What did you study at Sheffield?
I've got a degree in politics.
Ah, right. Okay. Of course, you'd go into retail then. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I went to Sheffield to do a degree in geography.
Yeah.
And wasn't really enjoying the geography. And was enjoying the politics, and discovered that in second year the geography curriculum was a 30-hour week and the politics curriculum was a 7-hour week. So I switched to politics and crushed it with a 2-2.
Hey, don't have 2-2s.
My wife is an academic and teaches at Edinburgh, and she teaches geography. So there's a bone of contention in our house about my lack of rigour, academic rigour. Worked for HMV as a Christmas temp, and absolutely loved it. I'd been the editor and written for the student newspaper, doing music reviews for live gigs and record reviews and so on. Music was an absolute passion for me. So being able to do the retail bit and sell records was just the dream for me. It was not necessarily for my parents, who just spent a lot of money putting me through university at that point. But with HMV, I got promoted really quickly as assistant manager. It was a very small shop in Preston, but I got made assistant manager after being there for 6 months and got put onto their store management development program, and was basically picked for progression. And I remember one of my fellow managers on the scheme was, he's now a successful book publisher, but he said, "We're the beans that stick to the top of the lid when you open a can of beans." And it's like, okay, I'm not sure I appreciate that analogy, but it was definitely true that a lot of the people that came through that scheme then went on to run shops and superstores in the business quite quickly as it expanded through the early 90s.
Yeah.
I think HMV ratcheted up to 100 shops, and I think got to about 125 by the time I left. So they were growing exponentially at that point, and we considered ourselves to be top dog on the high street, and that's because we were the top dog on the high street. I think that there was a range of different people that I met, and some of them I remember fondly, and some of them I would happily forget. But I learned an awful lot about how to run a business, because they were very keen that shop managers ran as much of the business as possible. So we had, budgetary responsibilities for virtually every element of the business that was manageable at store level. So all of our costs for how we bought the product, what we did with it, our margins, staff budgets, stock budgets, merchandising budgets, all of those things were devolved to the shops. They were managed really tightly from head office, but we had that responsibility at shop level. And that taught me a lot about the business side of it. It was a great time to work in the British music industry because that was the era of Britpop and the Spice Girls and Take That, the sort of boy band, girl band explosion. Blur versus Oasis. So running the business through that period was really interesting. And alongside that, the sort of computer games market was exploding with PlayStations and Super Nintendos and all of that stuff coming through at the time. The transition from VHS to DVD were all huge drivers of consumer change, and H&V was at the nexus of all of those things. And so the shops were just really exciting, interesting places to be working in. With lots of exciting and interesting people coming in and out of the shops, both in terms of the team members, but also like the customers. So, every shop I worked in, with the possible exception of Preston, interesting people came in the shops. Pop stars came in the shops, movie stars came in the shops. They were consumers of the products that we sold. So, there'd be regularly a little ripple through the shop floor where it'd be like Mick Hucknall's in when I lived in Manchester, or, footballers. When I was living and working in Liverpool, I'm a Liverpool fan and used to see Liverpool players regularly on the shop floor in the HMV on Church Street. So that was a buzz as well. Apparently Everton players came in, but I didn't recognise any of them.
I didn't even see them. So HMV stood for, or stands for?
His Master's Voice. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was the painting of Nipper with the gramophone.
Do you know that? Do you know HMV as a brand? Can you think of it?
Yeah, the wee dog next to it.
Okay, go on.
Yeah. They've had their ups and downs over the years as well. But bizarrely, just before I left the house this morning to come and do the podcast, there was a flyer, like a little gift guide from them on my doormat, put through the post with their winter gift guide. And it's like, they're back on the up, and I've got a real soft spot and affection for the time I spent there, but also the fact that they're still knocking it out of the park on the high street.
Yeah. And that's how you ended up in Edinburgh, right?
Yeah. So I had worked in 3 or 4 different cities for HMV, and was sort of doing the management development program, and was sort of being bumped from shop to shop. I did a series of new shops and refurbishments. So I was in Liverpool in the early 90s, and we did a gigantic redevelopment of a site on Church Street, and went from being an upstairs shop in an old Woolworths building that had been carved up between HMV and various Arcadia group shops like Topman and Topshop and so on. And HMV took over the ground floor and turned it into a really big, what we classed as superstores at the time, and then got effectively sent to Edinburgh, it has to be said. It was a slightly reluctant move. I was living in Liverpool. I'd previously been living in Manchester. It was like the height of Manchester at the point where HMV were trying to move me to Edinburgh. And it's like, well, why would I want to leave here? I could have moved to London at various points, but it's like, well, this is the epicenter of popular music right now. It was the Happy Mondays and the Stone Roses and Liverpool bands like Cast coming through. And it's like, no, you need to go to Edinburgh because this shop needs a refit. And so I landed up in Edinburgh in, I think it was April 94 with my then girlfriend, now ex-wife and mother of my eldest. We both came to Edinburgh together and started at the St. James Centre. And it was tiny. It was probably like 6 or 7 meters wide and about 20 meters deep. It was the tiny little shop. At the time, it was the most profitable shop in the estate per square foot because they had so much stuff jammed in there. And they'd also got an amazing rent out the old St. James Centre 25 years prior, basically. But we took over the whole of the front of the old St. James Centre shopping centre. So I did the refit there. And that shop then had a brilliant year. But the Scottish office moved out of the office block above the shopping centre at the time. I then moved to the Princes Street shop and ran the Princes Street shop for a couple of years. And then one day the managing director of HMV came up to visit. I've known him for years, and we went and stood across the road at Princes Street Gardens and looked at the facade of 129 Princes Street, and he went, "It's an amazing building, the castle's behind us, what a great place Edinburgh is." And then he looked back at the shop and he went, "It's a shame we're going to knock it down." And I was like, "Pardon?" And that was the beginning of the redevelopment of that site. Now it's now Sports Direct, but at the time, HMV basically, with the landlord at the time, just left the facade standing, took everything away and built, a 3-4 story concrete box behind the shop front. And at that point, my career was sort of slightly at a crossroads because the next step for me was to move south. At the time, I was newly married in Edinburgh with a brand new baby. My eldest was born in 97, and I just didn't want to move from Edinburgh. So I started looking for jobs, and I actually applied for a general manager job with John Johnson at Studio One and met him and his wife Alison. Got on well with them. And then they came back and said, "What if you became a franchisee at Paper Tiger?" And that takes us back to where we were at the start. That's how I joined Paper Tiger.
And was the idea in your head before that meeting to think I would like to have my own shop there, or?
No. And I'm not. I've never actually spoken to John about this. I might ask him next time I see him. I'm not sure whether it was in his, to be honest, but I'd like to think he saw something in me that gave him confidence to do something with Paper Tiger, which is still very much his baby. He cares deeply about how I'm doing, how the business is doing, and is still in touch on a regular basis, even though he's no longer involved in the business. But I think he must have seen something in terms of the kind of experience I had at that point and the interest and energy, I think, at the time to do something interesting with him and with the business. And that's how it then developed. And so, no, I didn't. I had no intention of starting a business, and it wasn't even something that occurred to me. It wasn't something that was in my family history. There was no, we came from pretty much from a family of, insurance salesmen, civil servants, and so on. It wasn't like there was no one in my wider family who ran a business, so it wasn't part of my experience at all. But being able to step into it in that way was a really interesting way of learning the ropes. HMV had given me a lot of training in that respect in terms of running the shop as effectively as a business manager as well as the shop manager. So that made it less daunting as a step, really. And so I just got more and more involved in different elements of the business over that period of time, working with John, took over more sites, did more, got involved more, learned more. And so it was really interesting. I think that the most challenging aspect for me at that point really was that I'd come from a business that had 125 plus shops at that point with, if there was a problem, there was a regional manager. If the regional manager had a problem, there was a divisional manager. If the divisional manager had an issue, he'd go to the ops department or the buying department or the HR department or whoever it might be. There was a huge organisation there. I was in London last week and was able to point at the old headquarters on Wardour Street and say to my kids, that's who I used to work for, HME, when they had their HQ on Wardour Street in the heart of Soho, in the heart of the British music industry. And I really missed that kind of, that ability to pick up the phone. And it wasn't just about the kind of the practical head office functions. It was also about having 100 other managers you could pick up the phone to and say, "Can you believe what we've just been asked to do, or how have you done this, or is this selling for you, or because we were all responsible for ordering our own stock, so the reps would come in from the record labels and would say, what do you want for the new REM album or whatever, and you go, well, I'll have 300 CDs because I love REM. And then you find out that the people at Preston are not quite as enthusiastic, and you've still got 200 of them to shift. You can ring up 100 managers and shift your stock around. So that ability to sort of manage your, air your problems, solve other people's problems, and work as a team really was probably one of the things I missed the most. It was it's like I was all of those functions pretty much, or the small group of people working in the Studio One Paper Tiger business, we had to solve our own issues. And that was probably the greatest challenge at that point, was sort of that realization that I couldn't just pick up the phone and have someone fix something for me. It was like, I've got to deal with this. So that was quite a steep learning curve, but it was fun. Edinburgh was really buzzy at that point. It was like, I think when I first came to Edinburgh, early 90s, the John Lewis in the St. James Centre still closed on a Sunday, and I think it was still shut on a Wednesday afternoon as well. I just remember just being astonished. It felt like I'd gone back in time, brutally, from Liverpool and Manchester. England had just introduced Sunday trading, and so then coming up to Scotland and still finding that there was half-day trading in Edinburgh was just mind-blowing to me.
So was Scotland behind England then in Sunday trading?
At that point, yeah,
right, okay.
yeah. So that was quite I think it was only a very brief window, but but around that time, the Lothian Road shop for Paper Tiger, all of the Clydesdale Plaza had just begun to get occupied, and the old Standard Life, what was Standard Life and may well still become Standard Life again on Lothian Road, had just opened. Scottish Widows opened their HQ on Morrison Street. Bank of Scotland opened new Uberia House up on Lothian Road. Yeah. So we suddenly had this influx of office people that just transformed the volume of people on the street in Lothian Road and also in the West End. And that was, kind of handy when you're trying to grow a business and learn the ropes. So that was, there's probably 5 or 6 years of really good, solid, strong growth. And, new boots on the ground in terms of me bringing different perspectives into the business, and working with the knowledge and experience of John, who by that point had been doing it for 40 years. So, he was time served in terms of retail skills and experience. And so it was a really good time. It was a really interesting time to work in independent retail for sure.
And Michael, Paper Tiger, where did that name come from?
So, it was originally used by, I think Chairman Mao used it to describe American imperialism and expansionism in the post-war political environment, Alan, since you asked.
That's a politics degree.
That's a politics degree. And he was basically saying that America was a paper tiger because although they appeared to be fierce, there was no substance to them. So it's just a great name for a shop that sells cards and stationery. And there were other paper somethings on the high street selling cards and stationery until quite recently as well. So Paper Chase, there's at least 1 or 2 other shops in and around Scotland and Edinburgh that have got paper something in their name, and obviously there's Flying Tiger. Yeah. So I think there's I was saying to you before we started, in all the years I've worked at Paper Tiger, it's extremely rare, so vanishingly rare, that I meet someone in Edinburgh who's from Edinburgh or lives in Edinburgh who doesn't know the brand. Yeah. Because it is such it's a really powerful name. It captures the essence of what we do in terms of the paper side of things. Everyone likes tigers. It's got all sorts of different connotations as well. So, yeah.
But the brand is good. But actually, you mentioned earlier about curb appeal and visual impact as well. And I would say, I'm picturing the stores, and they've got that.
Yeah. So, I think John has always been very clear about how the shop should look. I think when I first met him, he was all about the visual appeal of the shops, and that chimed with my experiences So I think, we were very aligned very early on about that level of presentation, about how shops should look and what the customers should see, how appealing it should be, and what the sort of expectations were for shop floor standards for presentation and cleanliness, and making the shops visually appealing, but also being able to kind of intrigue your customer. I don't necessarily think Tesco's do that, but I think booths still do that in the way that they present their shops and merchandise and tell stories about their products, and we try to do that as far as possible with what we do too.
How have you gone about kind of keeping up that vision then? So John's vision, including your vision, to then continue on the vision down to ultimately the team who are making sure the shelves are stacked neatly. How do you pull that all the way through?
By making sure that I work with excellent people, fundamentally. I am blessed to have a really great team of people working for me. And again, it's something that comes from previous retail experiences. Certainly with HMV, there was a gang mentality at HMV. I think we very much felt like we I lose the top dog on the high street thing, but we felt like we were the top gang in retail. And both in terms of the shops, so the old HMV shop on Prince Street, we had Virgin next door but one to us in what is now Urban Outfitters. So it was HMV, Waterstones, Virgin at that end of Princes Street, and we hated them. They were lovely, it turned out, when I did actually speak to them. But with no quarter was given, and it was very much about how strong the team was, the ability to rely on them, and that, the kind of boring bit of the answer is you make sure you recruit really competent, capable people who are open to being trained and taught interesting ways of retailing, but they've also got to bring something interesting to us as well. I always try and bring people into the business who are going to teach me something, because otherwise I'm just doing my job. All I'm doing is training for the rest of my life, and I want people who are going to work for me but bring something of themselves into the business as well.
And where are they coming from typically? What kind of backgrounds have they had?
All sorts of walks of life. I mean, I've got time-served retailers working for me who've worked in fashion retail, on high street retail. People who've worked for kind of businesses that are adjacent to us. So we were talking about chocolate earlier. One of my shop managers used to work for Hotel Chocolat, but also worked for Marks and Spencer's. I've got other retailers who've worked for other team members who've worked for big retailers in Canada, but I've also worked in kind of gallery type museums and galleries type shops. I think I've got 3 or 4 people now that are like 10, 12, 13 years into their time with me as well. Probably more, actually, probably 5 or 6 people that have worked for me for a long time. So there's a lot of learned experience over that period of time. A shorthand for how we work together, that we're able to bring in. In some instances, it's like you need an immediate response, and you can use that kind of shorthand conversation with somebody going, just do it, just do the thing, the thing we do that thing. But there's other people where you can bring them up to the point where they can just do the thing as well. So there's an element of that. At the moment, we're going through a process of trying to external. We've got procedure manuals, and this is how you start. This is how you open the tills in the morning, and this is what you do if the credit card machine doesn't work, and all that kind of like how-to stuff. But at the moment, we've spent a lot of time this summer on creating a customer service training guide and a merchandising training guide, and that's come from being driven by one of the shop managers who's just received her certificate in customer service, having done an online course over the summer. So she's had time away from the business to go and do that. Good. And then has revised existing training stuff that we've had for years in the business and updated it, and then is currently in the process of delivering that training to all of the team members at the moment, so everyone will get it.
And I'm interested in that bit in terms of the training of the individuals. How is she doing it?
So we had an offsite. We hired a office space recently. In fact, last week we had an out of office day, and we put additional resources into the shop so that we could bring as many people in over the course of 2 sessions, so that we could have the shops open and running, but bring people off site to deliver that training to as many people as possible in a sort of 2 hits over the course of the day. And then that will, there'll be a pickup for the kind of people that haven't had that over the next week or 2. And then we'll, there's temps coming in for Christmas at the moment. They'll get that as well. And all of that is documented now as well. So there is a training manual. We will record one of them so that we've got it as a, worst case scenario, someone watches it on YouTube as a kind of like second hand version of it as well. So just trying to put more of the that knowledge and experience into the system.
And can I just, on that bit, 'cause again, just on behalf of like other businesses that we work with as well, that bit about systemizing your business.
Yeah.
What do you find works best? Is it kind of almost text and
Me
pictures
personally?
in a paper? Yeah, what do you find works for your team?
I mean, I've got my notebook on the desk. Yeah. If I don't write something down, it may as well never happened.
Yeah.
And I will, when I'm in the shops, all of the team will have had a moment where I've said, can you just send me an email with that word as a subject line, so that I try and capture as much as possible. I read Getting Things Done by David Allen 25 years ago, and I have pretty much lived by that book during the entire time of running my own business. Mm-hmm. And I find that rigor and structure for managing tasks and activities is really valuable for me personally, and most of the shops follow the same system in terms of managing emails and inboxes, certainly. And we also use Trello for sort of day-to-day management. So each shop has got its own board for their own day-to-day stuff, but there's kind of standard operating procedure stuff that sits on their boards. They've got they use that for kind of inter-shop messages, for sort of handovers from different team members on what's going on and what isn't going on. And then there's boards that have just got that click through to PDFs, but they're structured as if it's a manual, and we have got manuals. So quite often there's a bit of the manual, but you can click through to that bit of the manual by finding it on the Trello boards. Yes, got it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, there is all the information is there. It's not necessarily always there in the right places when you want to go and get it. That would be So that's one of my big projects for 2026 is to put all of that into a kind of not just what to do, but how to do it kind of manual. And why we do it as well. I think that's the kind of the bigger picture stuff is like, it's not, we were talking before the meeting about buying confectionery from your previous role as well. And we bought all the Christmas confectionery was bought back in March and April. That kind of the rhythm of the retail year differs from the rhythm of the buying year. The recruitment planning takes a different time frame. The training and development takes a different time frame. And probably in the past 7 or 8 years, we've been much more diligent about boxing out time, both for the business and for myself to focus on specific things. So we now, for years we just did a sort of week by week. It's week 52, therefore it's New Year, therefore you need to have a sale window in the shop. The sale starts, and there was a very basic planner for that kind of stuff. And we've split the year now into 3, just because of the way our year works. We've got a sort of spring season which runs from January to April, and that covers for Paper Tiger. It's Valentine's Day and Mother's Day and Easter, and a lot of our new ranges come in in the first 3-4 months of the year. Then we have a summer season, which is Father's Day and the festival, and then winter for us starts on the 1st of September because that's the countdown to Christmas. So a lot of our planning runs around those kind of like if it, in the winter, prepare for summer, and in the summer, prepare for winter. You can go and look at that quote afterwards if you like. But that's the way the business is run at a planning level. And then, so there's a definite division between the operational side, which is like, you are now delivering Christmas, but other people in the business are going, what will the Valentine's window look like? What are we going to do for Mother's Day promotions? What's the summer plan? What are we going to do for the festivals, etc.? Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite complicated to have to juggle all those different diaries and then across multiple shops, and then,
Yeah, so I think, we've added 2 shops in the last 2 years, and that's been a big change for the business. I think it's in part because we've had the bandwidth to do it, and the opportunities have come up. So, Paperchase went bust for the umpteenth time back in January 2023, and I'd actually been looking for sites in Edinburgh for the previous year or two, and I found out they were opening in Edinburgh in 2022 because an agent I was working with sent me a schedule for a shop in Morningside, and there was it said Paperchase where the HSBC bank was. And I rang him up and said, why does this say Paperchase when it's the HSBC? And it's like, oh, well, HSBC are closing and that's going to be a Paperchase. It's like, right, well, I don't need to look for a shop in Morningside if my main high street competitor is opening across the road. But then they went bust. So I managed to get the same agent was then acting for the landlord. And it's like, please make sure that we get this project underway as soon as possible. And it worked out beautifully. The agent that was acting for the landlord was completely clear on what we needed to do. The agent acting for me was absolutely clear on what I wanted from the process, and the landlord was absolutely amenable to having Paper Tiger open in the premises. And we got the keys. They closed that shop at the end of February 2023. The leases were signed in April. I got the keys on May the 1st, and we traded on May the 11th. Wow. So that was like brilliant. Just, and it was, it wasn't quite tailor-made for us, but it pretty much was. Similar product mix for Paper Tiger. And they traded it for, I think, 6 months, 6 months. So it was almost pristine. So that was, a gift from the heavens landed in our laps in terms of being able to grow at pace like that. That then changed the nature of the business to some extent. But it was also kind of coming out of COVID. There was momentum in the business. I'd had a couple of team members that had been on maternity leave who came back into the business at that point, and we retained the maternity cover so that we had capacity to expand again, and got Morningside open, and then had the capacity again to do Stockbridge in summer of 2024.
What did you do right that Paperchase are doing wrong? Well, that might be a bigger question, but
I think I think that there's a definite sidebar to the Paperchase story. I think what happened to Paperchase is a disgrace, and I would put the blame firmly at the feet of private equity or venture capital. Somebody basically saw an opportunity to pull a lot of money out of that business and then pull the rug out from under the feet of a lot of very hardworking and passionate people who had made that business, brought that business back from the brink on previous, 2 previous occasions. So I think there were bigger challenges than what was happening on the shop floors of Paperchase. But on the shop floors of Paperchase, I think that they'd lost their way in terms of design and ranges. I don't think they were doing, they had a much narrower range than we do. We stock very densely, and have more stock per square inch, even, never mind square foot, than most of our competitors do. So that's very resource intensive, and I think you can do that at a relatively small scale, but it gets much harder at national chain scale to maintain the integrity of your shops, both in terms of the visual appeal, but also the stock management and so on. Is much harder to do. It's a very time intensive thing for us to make sure that the shops look as good as we hope they can every day of the week, 365 days of the year. And we've got we have visual merchandisers, and we spend a lot of time thinking about, talking about, and faffing about with our displays.
What about the kind of the retail environment then? Obviously, with kind of bricks and mortar, online, you've got digital and versus print. What's your take on things right now?
People love shopping.
Yeah.
They like being out and about, and they like interacting with product. And I think we trade successfully online. Very happy with our online business, and it's growing and will continue to grow. And it will probably settle in a similar, as a proportion of the business. I suspect it will ultimately be a similar proportion of the business as internet sales are in the rest of retail, which is sort of mid to high 20% of turnover. As we currently stand with 4 shops and a website, but the nature of what we sell is much more. Some of it's last minute. Oh my God, it's my wedding anniversary. I need a card, I need a gift, or I need to say thank you for something, or it's my mum's birthday, or it's the kids. I've got a party this weekend. We need to get presents, wrapping papers, etc. So a lot of that sort of sits in the FMCG market of I just need the thing right now. Thanks very much. And we're definitely in that space, and the shops are located in the kind of spaces that meet those requirements of the consumers in those places. So we're used to say that the two original shops in the city centre were both within like 100 metres of a Pret. It's no longer the case, but all 4 shops are within 100 metres of a Greggs.
All right.
So I think that proximity to where people are is a really important part of what we do. So proportionately, we're pushing people over the threshold to come and shop with us, and then it's down to the experience that you have in those places, whether it be how it looks and how it feels, how it sounds. I'm still a music obsessive after my days at HMV, and obsess over playlists for the shops, and then they always play the same old stuff, despite me lovingly curating them on Spotify. And with the visual appeal of the window displays, we work really hard on our windows with, John used to describe the windows as the eyes of the shop, and it's that contact point where the customer locks eyes on the shop and makes a decision about whether or not they're going to come in, whether there's enough interest or engagement in that window display to make them go, I'm going to go and have a look. And I think we've got reasonably good conversion rates once people are in, higher than average, higher than other sort of market levels, because we know that once people are in the shops, they're going to find things that they're not finding elsewhere, or they're finding it displayed in a way that they've not seen it before. They're buying, they're buying more than one thing, where, we are trying to create an experience in the shops with the products that gives people the impetus to buy something, even if they weren't necessarily intending to. But the flip of that is we have traded in Edinburgh for a long time. Yeah. We have a reputation for being good at what we do, I think. I don't think that's ego talking. I think that's based on, 40 odd years of delivering on the high street. And the line I hear the most on the shop floor from customers is, I don't know what I want, but I know you'll have something. And 9 times out of 10, we're usually able to find something for, the auntie, the husband, the partner, the kid's birthday, whatever it might be. Yeah. And whether it be just a card or card and wrapping paper, or just a small gift or token of appreciation. And that's really rewarding. And, people are coming into Paper Tiger most of the time because they are feeling good about themselves or about the person that they're intending to buy something for. So it's a very sentiment-driven business. And, sentimentality gets a bad rap generally. It's seen as a twee or overbearing or whatever. But it's what pays my mortgage, frankly, is that sense of people want to make connections with each other, with their family and with their friends, and those landmark occasions in your life, whether it be birthdays, babies, weddings, and, you know, sadly funerals, they are marked with a card. So 92% of the British population, of British consumers rather, this is from Kantar this year, 92% of consumers have bought a greetings card in the last 12 months. It's a higher percentage of the population than have bought toothpaste or deodorant.
Really?
Or tea bags, you know. So if you're thinking of like archetypal British consumer behaviours, buying greetings cards is more British than drinking tea. So, you know, those kinds of, it's an important part of how we connect to each other. And I think in terms of your original question, Alan, about, you know, physical retail versus online, I think online retail is really important. But I think what online has done, what's happening with online interactions is that I think that their level of importance is, you know, things like Facebook and Instagram are becoming less about the people you speak to, and it's more about the brands that you interact with. And that, you know, we're definitely seeing with younger age groups as well. And again, it's there in the stats from Kantar that younger people are coming back to things like greetings cards to make those physical connections with people, to actually have something land on a doormat. You know, it doesn't happen as often as it used to, and there's well documented issues with the Royal Mail that as an industry, the greetings card industry has engaged heavily with the Royal Mail and with Ofcom in the last couple of years. But getting real mail in the post is still a really powerful connection for people as a way of showing that you care.
Michael, we ask all our guests, what is your guiding principle in business?
Oh, I wish you'd told me that before I sat down in the chair. I've used this line before. We're nice people selling nice things in nice shops to other nice people who want to be nice to the other people in their lives. And I think if you're able to deliver on that most days of the week, you're getting most things right.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice, yeah.
That's nice.
And I'm not a big fan of the word.
Again?
Yeah, we're at Paper Tiger, we are nice people selling nice things made by other nice people in nice shops to nice customers who want to do something nice for the people they care about in their lives.
I like that. Can I ask you, can I flip this a little bit? If you had to be nice to one of these two groups of people, who would you be nice to? Everton fans or Virgin employees?
Oh, Virgin employees, any day of the week. What a ridiculous question. The tougher question would have been Everton fans or Man United fans.
Oh, right, okay.
There you go.
Then that would probably have to be my fellow city dwellers.
It's a cliffhanger.
Michael, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story. We wish you all the luck in the future.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.